Welcome back to the Healthy Mouth Movement podcast. Today, my guest is Sue Ellar. I am so excited to have her on the show today because she helps busy moms drastically improve their energy and body confidence, reducing chronic aches, pains, and release excess weight by permanently learning how to eat naturally, joyful, stress-free, and ways to diet without actually having to diet and exercise. Instead, they train their body and brain to crave healthy choices and learn to break free from dieting, free from dependence and highly processed foods and convenient foods to enjoy high quality food experiences guilt free. So, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Let's talk a little bit about how you got into this to begin with.
Well, Sherry, when for decades, my whole life, my whole adult life, I've struggled with my weight. And so I was looking for a program that would help me know how to release weight naturally without dieting. I was so fed up of dieting. I'd done them all. I couldn't stick to them. I felt like a failure because I couldn't stick to them. But what I realize now is the reason why I couldn't stick to them. And that was because they were focused on deprivation. They were focused around requiring willpower to stick to an unusual food plan that is nothing like the way you eat. And so it just didn't work for me. And so I spent, my 20s, 30s, and 40s feeling pretty ashamed of my body and feeling judged for being overweight. Even though what we now know is that some of us are genetically predisposed to carry extra weight. So let's forget the body shaming. It's not our fault. But what we know now is that it's partly the food industry with all the ultra processed foods and the added sugar in everything and the added flavoring enhancers that are keeping us hooked. So I was looking for weight loss, but what I found was actually a completely new bill of health because I learned to eat the way nature provided, the way Mother Nature provided, the way we're meant to be eating as human beings roaming the planet. Now, it sounds like it might be quite extreme, but this is the modern world. We have things to make things easy for us, like blenders and cookers and all kinds of food processors, and we can make the most beautiful foods out of all natural ingredients. And that's what it's all about, Cherie, is when you start to eat in a much more natural way, you won't believe how much you can enjoy your food and the benefits that has. So whilst I was looking for weight loss, and I did achieve a couple of dress sizes, which felt lovely off my body, what I hadn't realized was that I was going to get free from stiff and achy joint pain, free from, or certainly reduce my allergies, free from gut issues like acid reflux, indigestion, those kinds of things, and to just find incredible energy. So yeah, it's all about discovering how to eat again.
Yeah, and that's amazing. That's one of the things that I love about you because I had breast cancer, so I had to change how I was eating. And it's hard to, change that and get rid of all that stuff. And you're right, it does feel like deprivation. So I love what everything that you're about because we should eat how nature provided us to eat. That is how our bodies process. And you're right, it gets rid of all that inflammation. So it's just for some of us hard to incorporate depending on where you live and your socioeconomic background because the processed foods are less expensive.
Yeah, it can be the way, and they're more compulsive as well. So it is a problem, but there's two different ways of doing this. The first way is to spend years making healthy swaps one at a time and then embedding them. And that's what I did gradually, I think, over the decades when I picked out the bits that I knew made sense to me, adding in more vegetables, adding in more fruit, starting to swap out the really the really unsupportive foods. I don't like to say good or bad, but the foods that are really unsupportive. So I was already on a journey to swapping those things out. Even though I'd spent a long time improving my eating, making healthy swaps, it still wasn't enough to help me release weight, find the energy and to overcome this joint pain and stiffness. Um, I kind of knew some things, but I didn't know the whole story. So actually, what made all the difference for me was discovering a program that was about 3 months long that gave you one change per week. So now when you're focusing on just the one change that you have to do per week, what happens is at the end of that week, you go, oh my goodness, I feel so much better. All I did was swap this out and this in, yeah, and I feel so much better. And so now you notice it. You notice it from the beginning of the week to the end of the week. And so what happens is that one change you associate with how you were feeling before and how great you're feeling now. So this is the magic. This is where the magic happens, is tuning in to how good you feel when healthy swaps are done in the right order so that they're doable and intensively enough that you genuinely feel the benefits. So you can imagine that if we're making one healthy swap over the course of a couple of months, one healthy swap per week, then you're going to feel so much better. So after about week 6 or 7, I was free from the joint pain, and this energy came back, and I was bouncing out of bed in the morning, wanting to crack on with my day. That's the difference. So there's the slow way, and everybody knows, everybody can find out what to do.
Mhm.
But if you want to get this sorted, find a program that will coach you, or a coach that will help you to make these changes and really embed them permanently.
And not only for you, but for your family as well.
Absolutely. So it has had a huge knock-on effect on my family. So for one, we don't, the way I coach is we don't try and persuade anybody to change, right? It doesn't work. It backfires.
Mhm.
So we're not going to come in there and go, right, everybody, we're going to eat this way today, health food, and get rid of all the junk. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we lead by example. So we put our healthy options on the table at the family meal, along with all the other options. So I've got 2 teens, 16 and 18, and they eat the way they like. But if they want us to prepare food for them, and we do most days, we'll have a family meal most days, which is based around fish, vegetables, meat. And so we'll put that one central meal on the table. And I might have a side of something like some roasted butternut squash or some roasted cauliflower or something like that. That's my side. I'll have some delicious stir-fried vegetables. And I'll put these side dishes in bowls on the table for everybody. So now if a family member wants their fries, their chips, whatever it is they want with their food, they can have that. But there's also these lovely vegetables as side dishes there as well. And this can really work with little children. Is when little children see something new, they don't want to eat it because they're trying to protect themselves. But if you continually put side dishes of vegetables on the table and just offer it, gradually they're going to learn, this is food, and they're going to see you eating it day in, day out. And that is how some kids manage to grow up eating healthy foods, right? It's because they're shown it and they're surrounded by it all the time. So that's really key. And it does wear off when we do this. It really does.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. We eat kind of how our family teaches us. Like everything that we do is habits that we learned from our family. So kids do learn by example. So I love that you just put it out there. And if they want to eat it, they can. It's not forcing them because then, yeah, then they get aversions to certain foods.
Yeah, exactly. If you push, I remember as a child being kind of forced to eat meat that I didn't want to eat. And it doesn't feel great. And I still don't like that kind of meat even now. So pushing really does not work. And I know that there's going to be so many mums listening saying, yes, but I do this, I do this. I know where you're coming from. It feels really hard sometimes. I must have offered that vegetable 30 times. Yeah. And you need to eat more of it and you need to offer it more. And it may take years, especially with some kids, particularly kids with autistic traits, and they have their likes and dislikes and their comfort zone and their familiarity. It can take a long time, but persevere. And it's in, if you give up and you constantly provide the junkier foods, they're just going to stay requiring those foods. So start as early as you can and change it gradually and in a kind way, and talk about how healthful this food is and how great it's going to make you feel. And it's not just grown-ups that can tune into how foods feel in their body. Kids can too.
Mhm.
So you could do an experiment. You could say, right, kids, we're going to have some junkier food today and see, how do we feel? How do we feel before? How do we feel after? How's it feeling in our tummies? Are we feeling sluggish? Are we feeling heavy? Is our tummy a little bit upset? Do we wish we hadn't had it? Okay, note that. Now we're going to try it next day. We're going to try how it feels eating healthy food. You might not like the healthy food, but let's have a healthy meal and see how that feels. And by continually talking about how good you feel when you eat healthy foods, you're going to be reprogramming those neural pathways in the brain that make you want the healthier foods. And that's what it's all about, Sherry. It's doing something that makes you want to eat healthy because it feels better.
I agree. That is amazing. And I love how you articulate that so well. Um, and I didn't really realize that too. I am a myofunctional therapist, so I work with the tongue and how it functions. And what I have learned with working with people is that for some kids, it's the texture of the foods. So sometimes you can prepare it in a different way, maybe the next time that gives it a little different texture, like tofu. You can cook it or you can give it to them raw. So I learned that I had to experiment with things with my daughter because she might not take it raw or cooked or the other way around because of the texture of how it felt when she was chewing and swallowing it.
It's so important, texture, and how it looks as well. Because like, how many kids do you know that would like to eat a mushroom? I've always thought mushroom is an acquired taste. Maybe if kids were really brought up on mushrooms, I certainly wasn't. It took me till I was an adult to want those. So what I used to do with my kids when they were little, I used to put the mushrooms in a food processor and make them tiny, chopped really, really tiny so that it looked like the minced beef. And so it became part of the bolognese or the chili or the stir fry without them even noticing it. And could they taste it? No, of course they couldn't. So I used to do that sort of hidden veg with all kinds of things. I used to do it with green beans. I do it with zucchini, courgette, butternut squash. And so you can pretty much do that with anything. Blend it down really small, chuck it in anyway. They think they're eating the same meal. And if you do this gradually with the meals they like, there's nearly always a one pot meal that the whole family will enjoy. There's usually something like a bolognese curry, a chili, a casserole, this kind of thing, or a hot pot. There's a good tip, actually. Hot pot is something that really got my children eating vegetables. So what we used to do, we learned it when we were camping, and we call it foil pack. So when you're camping, let's say you got the luxury of being able to cook on an open fire, or even if you're just cooking on a camping stove, it's a lovely thing to do outdoors. You get big pieces of extra strong kitchen foil and you cut those into large squares. And then you prepare all the vegetables. Think of all the vegetables you like, peppers, onions. It could be carrots, diced up small, whatever veg, broccoli, cauliflower, whatever veg the family will eat. And then you want to get yourself some minced beef, minced lamb, or minced pork, or chicken, something like that. That's really nice and easy to eat. And then the magic happens. You get the whole family to gather around. You've got all these separate ingredients in separate bowls, and they select what they want in their foil pack. And then you could put maybe some olive oil. Maybe somebody wants some herbs on theirs. Maybe somebody else wants paprika. I like a little chili on mine, or some mint sauce if it's lamb. So you're making your own little mini meal in your own little foil pack, and then you fold it up so that it's airtight. Pop it on a tray in the oven or over the fire. And the joy on those kids' faces when their hot pot is perfect the way they made it, and they do eat it then because they're bought in.
Yeah, they got to pick what they wanted in it and they got to make it. I love that as a tip. I wish I would have known that. That would have been a fun thing to do. So, what other tips do you have for moms if they're struggling with their weight? And because we are usually hardest on ourselves.
Yeah, we're so judgmental of ourselves, aren't we? And the way we speak to ourselves, sometimes you would never say that to your best friend. So the first thing is, it's not about your weight, right? Let's start to love our bodies for the amazing things that they are. Okay. And let's make peace with our bodies the way they are. Because while we're in this kind of self-critical frame of mind, we're never going to love ourselves enough to actually feed ourselves with nourishing food. It's a key part. So that's the first part. See if you can find a way of letting go of those judgmental feelings about your body and start to, maybe it's affirmations. I feed my body with wholesome food. I love and nourish my body. These kinds of affirmations. Then the next step would be forget deprivation. Deprivation doesn't work. Calorie restriction, it's hard. The body fights back. It's not worth it. It's not worth the amount of willpower. What we coach is adding in more of the good stuff. So we know what the good stuff is, right? The vegetables, fruit, meat, fish, eggs, nuts and seeds. Not everybody's going to eat meat, of course, and vegetarians perfectly fine. But we know what the healthy, natural, whole foods are. Let's start adding in more of those. So how can you add in fruit? Easy. Start the day with fruit. Starting the day with fruit is a really empowering way to start your day, because now you've got something really healthy right in your body straight away. Forget anything else. Have your second breakfast and your lunch, have that later on, but start the day with fruit. Another way of starting the day is with healthy proteins like eggs, because proteins can really help you go through the day without picking, without constantly looking for the next snack. So adding in more of the good stuff is a start. And that could be an extra vegetable side dish, some raw vegetables. If for people who like to eat a carrot or a celery stick, dip it in some mayo or hummus or whatever you like, but adding in more veg, and then thinking about healthy proteins rather than packaged proteins. So packaged proteins that I certainly came to be dependent upon were things like breaded fish, chicken nuggets, those kinds of things. See if you can make your own at home. Or maybe you don't need to coat chicken and fish in breadcrumbs. Try it without. Let's try chicken breasts, maybe cooked in the oven or stir fried with some lovely flavors like garlic and ginger. So it's about experimenting, but thinking about what can I use that's a whole natural food rather than something out of a box or a packet. And it does take a little bit of know-how. So you're going to need to find some inspiration from somewhere. And this is what I coach.
I love that. So, what do you do? I have a lot of moms that struggle. They say they love bread and chips, and that is the hardest thing to give up. And what is a good swap out for that when you're
Yeah.
struggling with that? Because that tends to put on pounds for a lot of people
Yeah.
that I talk to.
So the first thing is we try to swap out or give up bread and chips because, and that's the first thing we do. And it's really, really hard because actually we're not properly nourished yet. We need to deal with 6 different human hungers before we can start to swap things out. So the 6 different human hungers starts with drinking more water. So thirst being one of the primary hungers. We think we're hungry when actually we're thirsty. And that's how we evolve, because we evolved to get most of our water from plants, right? So it figures. Low blood sugar hunger is another one. And low blood sugar hunger is because we're eating these highly refined carbs and sugars that we're feeling really sluggish. So those are the ones we're going to swap out. We're going to swap those highly refined carbs like bread and chips. We're going to swap those out for other things. But before we do that, let's get properly nourished. So we need to address nutritional hunger and variety hunger. So we're packing in loads of the good stuff and getting as much variety as we can so that we get all our nutritional needs met. And then we've got emotional hunger. And, I think we've got a link, haven't we, to my 6 human hungers that people can grab if they want to. So it's really important to get nutritional hunger properly satisfied, satiated, before we try removing anything. But to answer that specific question, what are some healthy swaps? When you get to that stage, don't try and do it at first. But first of all, so for fries, I would do sweet potato fries, parsnips, roasted butternut squash. Those are absolutely divine, and they've got the sweetness, they've got that moorish flavor that you're looking for. So just try it. Try root vegetables roasted in something like extra virgin olive oil, because it's super healthy. If you've got an air fryer, brilliant. You can make fries out of something different. The bread, I would say it's a complete rethink. So the reason we're so obsessed with bread is because it's everywhere. And we have learned that every bread goes with everything. We've learned to put our food between 2 pieces of bread. Well, let's think about what food we would put between those 2 pieces of bread and just have the food. So now we're going to have a beautiful, maybe it's a portable meal. Maybe you're taking a meal with you to the office. I would say cook some vegetables the night before, the ones you really love, make them flavorsome. Have those cold roasted veg in a container with some slices of chicken or a piece of fish or a tin of tuna. So think, or some ham. So think about your healthy protein. What healthy proteins can you take cold in a box? And what vegetables can you put with that? It doesn't have to be salads, but salads are great, but we want some substantial vegetables with those too, so that we're filling our tummy, not just trying to fill up on boring green leaves and tomatoes. Yeah, we want to make it wholesome. So another top tip for carrying things like salads is you want to add some protein, you want to add some dressing. And the advanced version now is making our own mayo, but use what you've got for now, and we can advance to that version later. You want a bit of crunch, something lovely. So those roasted parsnips that I was mentioning earlier, pop those in your salad, because now it gives you something really tasty and maybe something crunchy. What about seeds? What about adding seeds and nuts? Just a little sprinkle, just to give you that little bit of crunch. And then you want to take a little bit of dressing in a small bottle, like extra virgin olive oil mixed with some apple cider vinegar or balsamic or something like that, so that you've got some lovely oil which keeps you satisfied, right? So don't try and go low fat, because you're going to be hungry constantly.
I love that answer. It's amazing how you put all this together, because it's easy to follow, and it's not hard when you look at it. And I think you're right. A lot of diets, in the way that we talk about food, it's about deprivation, and that's why it's hard to stick to. And changing those habits a little bit at a time, that I think that's absolutely key to having it stick, and making it easy for you to eat the foods that don't create that inflammation.
Exactly. So embracing one change at a time is crucial. How long it takes you to make that change, to get it embedded, depends on how committed you are and how tuned in you are to, first of all, your big why. So your big why needs to be a really empowering reason to want to make these changes, because very often I think the changes that we make, we think we're not going to see the benefits. They're just, in theory, if I eat this way, I'm going to be healthier at some point in the future. So we can't connect with it. So it's important to have a big why and to dig deep. So I coach a template where we say, why do you want to be healthier? And then what would this do for you? If you could be healthier, what would this do for you? Or if you could be healthier and release some of the weight that's holding you back, what would that do for you? And then when the answer comes out, and what would that do for you? And how would that improve your life? And you go 5, it's called the 5 whys. And
Mhm.
you go deeper and deeper until you end up with something like this. I want to be healthier because I want to live longer. I want to be around longer for my children. And I want to set a great example so that my kids can live their best lives. Ooh, now that's powerful.
Mhm.
So you need to find that big why to keep you motivated for making these changes week after week.
That's phenomenal. And I love the way that you just make it so simple. What are the ways that someone can work with you?
So we're going to share a link, and there's loads of freebies that people can get. I've got my big why template. I've got the 6 human hungers. So people are welcome to take all those freebies that are on my site. If somebody's keen to make a radical transformation and they want that by the summer, they need to reach out to me, because I coach a 90-day program. One's just kicked off now. My next one starts in a few weeks' time. It's a 90-day program that guarantees you that you are going to be feeling healthier. You're going to reduce some of the symptoms that are causing you problems at the moment, inflammation, digestive disorders, and you're going to feel amazing in your body. And as a side effect of all this wonderful healthy eating, weight is going to come off the body naturally without even trying. So that would be my 90-day program. And to find out more about that, check out my website, sueellar.com. And if you're really interested in having, reach out and have a chat with me about that. And I can tell you everything that's involved. But most of this information is on my website, Sherry.
Okay, thank you so much. And if you have one key takeaway that you would like moms to know from listening to this podcast, what would it be?
That actually, when you eat for health and you do this, as best you can, you will experience the benefits in the moment. You will feel better in your body. You will have more energy. You will feel lighter. So try and let go of the obsession with eating to lose weight, because that's going to end up making you undernourished. Trust me, I've coached 170 people through this program. And when you eat in a much more natural way, you will feel amazing. And then it'll be worth it. And you won't ever want to go back.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, for your knowledge, and for putting this out in the world. I think what you do is amazing. And just the way that you present it, your energy, and the non-judgment that you have. That's one of the things that I love about you and your program. So thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, Sherry. It's an absolute honor to be here speaking to your listeners. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. She is super sweet. And if you guys have been struggling with this or want to incorporate healthier foods that get rid of inflammation in the body, like I talk about, please just go ahead and check her out. Check out her free stuff. She is a wealth of knowledge, and just the way that she puts it simply is very inviting. As always, thanks for listening. Until next time.